Hello and welcome to the 16th edition of the Echo Chamberlain livestream. The world continues to go crazy, so hopefully we can keep you entertained for a couple of hours. So let's bring out the guests. According to polling firm Gallup, Americans who register the highest levels of life satisfaction are demographically middle class, white, married, family raising, faith-based, and politically independent. Here, with a pronounced spring in his step, is Mr. Greg Owen.
I mean, I can't be happier. There's what lie has been told. I appreciate you having me on as always, sir. Hopefully I can bring some joy and some of my happiness to the show this evening.
Yeah. What was your moment of finding out the news that that the president, the leader of the free world, had just said, I'm out, I'm done?
Gosh, it was Sunday. What was I doing Sunday? I can't remember what it was, but I just happened to look at my phone because, you know, I can't stop looking at that thing 17,000 times a day. And I just happened to see a live stream that people were talking about, not his press conference. I didn't realize till later they were talking about his tweet. He resigned.
Yeah.
That's like a breakup text with the country. Yeah. That is terrible.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah, you're right. Shouldn't he have done a live address? Would have been a bit of drama, would have been, cool.
I think that they wanted, I don't know if they saw it coming, but now people think he's dead. So I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. He broke up with the country. It's like he sent a MySpace.
Not me, it's you.
But what was your feeling though? Did you just go, that's interesting? Or did you go, what did you think?
I mean, I thought it was coming for a long time. I just, after the debate performance, after everything, and then he got COVID and all that, I think the pressure was too much. And, I'm sure we'll find out later as to who said what, or, was he forced out? Was he pressured out? Whatever. Did he just kind of come to the realization? But I was actually surprised it didn't happen sooner was really my big response. I just thought, okay, yeah, that's pretty natural.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, hold on tight there. Back in his native Ireland, my next guest once worked as a chauffeur for the band U2. Often griping that, despite the meager wages, he was unable to find other clients and therefore could not live with or without them, often getting lost and shouting into the back seat that he still couldn't find what he was looking for, and blaming it on the poor state of traffic signage, grumbling that the streets had no name. He is Despot of Antrim. Oh no, he's muted. Oh no, unmute yourself, Despot.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
All right. Very impressive. I enjoyed that.
You like that one?
I would never show you two, though. I can't stand them. Don't like them.
You can't stand them? I thought they were national treasures.
They're much better. They're much better than anything you would get today in commercial charts. I'll say that.
That's true.
They just never really... I never really took to them. Their music, at their best, I think their music was kind of nice, but sort of boring and all very samey. But... Yes. Yeah, maybe I'll give them another listen. I never gave them a big chance, to be fair.
Well, they said that the Irish character in the music, there's the ache and the melancholy of Irish characters in the music.
Jesus, if you want to be depressed, try watching Irish cinema. It's right? So fucking downcast and depressing. I mean, you've seen the Banshees of Inisherin, very, very depressing, stark. That's just Irish cinema. I don't know what it is. Why can't we make a movie that's just funny or fun? Like Father Ted, make fucking something like that.
Yeah,
you are familiar with the history of the country. It's
every country has a depressing history.
Why is Dostoevsky so down? Well, it's fucking old Russia. That's why.
Every country has a depressing history. There's no reason why Ireland should. It's a trope. The Irish have singled themselves out to make these horrible, depressing, stark movies, and they need to stop.
Well, to be fair, New Zealand never went through a potato famine, or when New Zealand immigrants went to America, there weren't signs saying, no, New Zealanders need apply. So I think the Irish had it worse.
Britain owned half the world, but it wasn't right on top of them.
Yeah.
The, what do you call them? The Maori basically exterminated the Moriori in this horrible genocide. Like stuff like that. That every country has these horrible stories like that.
That's true, man. That's a deep New Zealand deep cut. I didn't expect off-country people to know that, so that was great. I appreciate that.
The Despot knows all and sees all.
I guess so. Well, my next guest has displaced Tatiana as the critical drinker's #1 source of amusement and entertainment. Many of his YouTube rivals have ended up with a cinder block around their ankle and thrown off a lonely pair at night on the Jersey Shore. Here, while upstart competitors swim with the fishes, it's DarkHour.
I love how you always seem to work in some sort of mafia.
Yes, you do
It's
look like a mafia.
It's lazy. Yeah.
You look like a mafia don's son, DarkHour.
I'm
But
not
I'm
even
wondering-
Italian.
Are you the competent son? Are you the competent son, or are you the bumbling son who is incompetent? But who, like,
I'm probably the competent one, I would guess.
Yeah, you're the competent one. Your brother is incompetent. He's a bumbling idiot, and you're faced with a dilemma: do you kill him, or do you sort of throw him into the back of an airplane and have him carted off to some like Perth in Australia or something?
This is getting more depressing than Ireland all of a sudden.
I think he's the son.
You're not Fredo, so you're good to go.
That's true. I think it's the son that the consigliere of the family, who isn't Italian, kind of is irritated and looks at DarkHour and thinks, he's got the privilege. I think that's
so. I used to work at a company. It was a production rental house, and everybody but me had a really Italian last name. So they had to come up and like we would get these packages in from other offices, and they would always be addressed to the person, and then like it'd be like, I'll just make up a name, but it'd be like Joey the hammer Falcone or something. It would always be like I just had to make up an Italian. I'm not gonna throw anybody's real name out there, but it would always be like something like that. The piano wire or some sort of like in quotes name or something. And but I never got that because my last name wasn't Italian. So I was just my name, and I was like, I always felt.
Are you wearing is that an Eagle Fang shirt?
Yes.
Nice. Nice.
Hold on, wait, let's see if you can see it.
Bite like an eagle.
That's great.
Pretty good.
So you've got my favorite umlaut on the internet. So you normally have the umlaut over your A in DarkHour. So how do I pronounce it? Would that be DarkHour?
I don't know. I just did that to look different. I don't know how you would pronounce it, to be honest with you. But that's my grandmother was from Austria. My other grandmother was from Germany. So I just kind of ran with it.
All right. Well, today's featured guest. Sometimes on this stream, we have to improvise when things change last minute. I had lined up several Eldritch gods, including Yog Sothoth, Nyarlathotep, and Shub-Niggurath. But with them abruptly pulling out, I managed to rustle up my next guest as a replacement. Currently, the longest YouTube video of all time is a slideshow of some guy's trip to Chile, clocking in at 571 hours, 1 minute and 41 seconds. The creator saying, I challenge anyone to try and make a longer video. One thing's for sure, my next guest's ears are burning. He is Mauler.
Hello. As to whether or not I could make a video longer than that, we're just going to have to release a few more Star Wars movies. Certainly the Rey trilogy, that would get me going.
If you put all your videos together as one video, what do you think the length would be?
You know what? I don't know if that's something that we should answer. Maybe it's better we don't know. Who knows how long that would last?
Well, how close to 571 hours do you think it would be?
Every one of them. I mean, we're not including streams. I would assume. So at that point,
let's just do content. Yeah.
I actually have no idea, to be honest with you. The longest I ever made that would count as like one video would be 6 hour breakdowns, which I think Despot is catching up to that, right? What's your longest?
My longest is almost 2 hours. That was my last video, and then my Acolyte one it'll be close to 4 hours. But that's because, and do you know what though? That's with a lot of. It could have been much longer. It could have been much longer. There are entire sections. Like Greg is going to do a whole political section on how psychopathic Leslie Headland is, and he's going into detail on it. I didn't even deal with that because that's the whole culture war that surrounds it. I did not even get into any of that, just the actual show itself. But you could go make 6-7 hours in the Acolyte, and it wouldn't be any fluff. It would all be very focused stuff.
Yeah. Show definitely gives you plenty to work with. But I was good to hear my family members denied coming on the podcast and made me do it. It's kind of weird, but I'll fill in where I can. Good to hear they're still in contact, though.
Yeah, I don't think I got the pronunciation even 20% correct, but
they appreciate it.
Yeah.
The attempt.
Right. Well, welcome everybody. It's great to have you on, and I think we're just going to do our last little discussions about the old Acolyte. I think everyone is kind of a bit acolyted out. So what are everyone's last thoughts and impressions? Because mine are just a dismal feeling of just the last episode of how feeble it is. That's the word that I kept going back to. The characterization being feeble, the character interactions and relationships, the idea of who the protagonist is or isn't, the change of costume from, one's in black and one's in white now. And Amanda Stenberg's empty, blank expression.
It was deep.
Everything was just tragic and horrible. And it looked like people converging in a place in the most contrived way. I didn't care about anyone towards the end, not even enough to hate watch them. And so, it was just a miserable time. And I got so galvanized, I ended up making 6 or 7 videos, even though I swore after the second or third one that I was out, but I just got dragged back in again because it kept getting into me that I had to, just a sense of incredulity at how feeble and terrible it was. And the crazy disconnect with Leslie Hitlin's interviews where she's talking about, this is my greatest achievement, and all the sycophants asking her these questions. So bizarre, tragic stuff. So, Greg, what were your last sort of impressions and thoughts? What sticks with you?
Oh gosh, what sticks with me is the problem is I'm having a hard time now that I've read all these interviews. I'm having a hard time separating the show from Leslie's words about the show.
Mm-hmm.
Like her describing it has made it infinitely worse than it was on its own. But what I finally got from the end is that this is the most CW drama that I've ever seen. And everything really was just about these two on screen. I mean, it's about shipping these two. And that's all anything was ever about. I mean, the reason that May doesn't make any sense is because they knew, well, she doesn't matter because at the end of the show, it's just going to be these two. So we don't really have to give a shit about anyone except for them and getting the girl to hook up with the bad boy and having this little moment at the end. And it really is depressing. I think the reason that you're getting sucked back in, because I thought about this, like there's lots of bad shows. I mean, entertainment is like 98% schlock at this point. But we're all jumping on Acolyte. Like, why is that? I was thinking that because you could tear apart innumerable shows on Netflix and Hulu and all kind of stuff and Disney. I think it's because this is arguably one of the largest internet or entertainment IPs in the world. And to see it at this level, to see this literal fan fiction. Leslie said when she was writing the romance, she went back to muscle memory, doing the kind of writing she did in high school. And that is painfully evident when you're looking at it on screen. And when you see the biggest entertainment IP in the world for decades reduced to high school fanfic, you can't help but get drawn in. You can't help but feel impassioned about the state of entertainment on principle. And I think that's why I was the same way as you. I was like, nah, fuck this show. I'm not going to watch any more of it. But I had a morbid fascination with this train wreck. How did we get to this place?
And not just that, like I never wanted to chastise a show. Like when, is it May gets the lightsaber and then like flicks her dreadlocks off. You just want to point at the screen and go, no, you can't do that. That's not good enough. I never wanted to chastise a show before.
Bad.
I found myself doing it with this. Yeah, bad show.
We want to roll up a newspaper and slap your TV.
Yeah. Well, so Despot, after putting together a 4-hour video, which must have taken 100
I'm
hours.
still not finished it. I'm working on the audio right now. I haven't even started the video. It took me ages to write the script.
Mm-hmm. So at a sort of psychological level, what was the deep things propelling you about the show?
I despise how immoral it is and how Star Wars has what started out as something that was really positive and adventurous and optimistic and heroic has become the complete inverse of all of those things. Mm-hmm. And it also strikes me how Disney they've taken to completely plundering and plagiarizing and pillaging the prequel trilogies in an attempt to give their dog shit shows some sheen of legitimacy. And particularly episode 1 with the Acolyte, episode 1 pillages heavily from, the Acolyte pillages heavily from episode 1. Like it basically plagiarizes Act 2 of the Phantom Menace, almost beat for beat in terms of the Qui-Gon Jinn Anakin story. And so that annoys me because I despise plagiarism above all else, and this show is definitely plagiaristic in certain aspects, but it's just the misery of it. You know, the glorification of evil, or the denial of evil, or the attempt to conflate the Jedi and the Sith as essentially being co-belligerents in a war where there is no clear good and bad, which is, I mean, the whole point of Star Wars is that we want to get away from that, because if you look at how war is in you know, our own world, like say the war between Russia and Ukraine, for example, it's just a mess. You know, it's very tempting to pretend that there's a clear good guy and bad guy, but in reality, it's just a big, horrible, bloody mess. But in Star Wars, that doesn't have to be the case. There is supposed to be a good guy and a bad guy, and they've completely lost that. And I absolutely hate how bloody depressing it's become, because that's not what it's supposed to be.
The idea that it's edgy and mature to deconstruct ideas of good and bad and to collapse binaries like that. It's not edgy and mature. Sometimes it is good to have clear-cut definitions of heroes and villains, but you can have dynamic and interplay within that. But to have those fundamentals isn't, you know, something that needs to be evolved from or made edgy. Especially when you don't care about any of these characters and their motivations change in a dime, often bizarrely out of nowhere. So yes,
what's interesting, and Despot brings it up, is that they are simultaneously trying to copy what worked and also subvert it at the same time, because they genuinely don't know what works. I just today I watched this fantastic video. There's this channel, Sargon of Akkad, or I'm sure I pronounced that wrong, but he did this video called The Cargo Cult Industrial Complex, as an allegory for why we'll never get good Star Wars again. And I guess there was some point in history, some island nation that had never seen, you know, industrialized world, and they were dropping cargo during a war. They were dropping these crates, and they began to worship them. And then the war was over, so they stopped dropping them, and they began to get elaborate rituals to try to summon the cargo crates again, and they couldn't figure out how. And he was doing this whole bit about how modern writers are just flailing around trying to create rituals to summon the magic of old Hollywood, trying to do the things that people were doing back then that made success without understanding why any of it was successful. And so it's just this constant empty pantomime. And so they're either copying soullessly, or they're still doing the we're subversive and that's clever thing. And in this show, they're doing both of them at the same time, because they just quite literally don't know what else to do.
Well, DarkHour, what have you taken away from the show, and how do you rid yourself of the grime that is left in your psyche?
I don't want the grime to go. I want more. I want 50 seasons of this shit. I want it. Yeah, I'll try not to repeat the same things. One of the things that stood out the most for me as I was making my videos, which I did 3 over about an hour, so not as much as Despot, but was just the sheer lack of quality control that is within not only the company as a whole, but just being that each script, each episode, scene by scene, even sometimes line by line, goes through this process of not only changing motivations, but also sometimes completely contradicting itself from line to line. You'll have one person say something, they'll cut to a scene, they'll come back to that same person who says the exact opposite thing. Probably the worst example is Leslie Headland's wife. She seems to contradict herself every line. Also, this insane amount of key jingling that is required for them to write even the most basic of things, you know, adding things that don't make sense, whether it be the Plagueis, you know, cameo, we could call, I don't even know if that was a cameo, because it was, but you know, the light whip that was there for absolutely no reason. It was just there because, oh, we want to give this character something unique for people to talk about for approximately 20 seconds. You know, it's just all of this just equates to, how can you not have a single person in this entire production that costs $180 million, and that's just on paper, going, hey, none of this is making any sense.
I actually have an answer for that, and I'd like to get your thoughts on this. I'll ask you, Mauler, what you think about this. Basically, I was thinking, okay, how do you get a production where there's fires in space and nobody says, guys, that's probably not a great idea? Or you pull out the whip saber and maybe somebody like the assistant director or just anybody on set can come up and say, look, if you're going to pull out that whip saber, the audience is going to expect a battle scene with that. It's kind of like the Chekhov's gun principle. Yeah. And there's tons of these little moments And I was thinking, has the culture at Lucasfilm become so oppressed that people on set, and especially men, are just afraid to speak up and say, this is wrong, because they don't want to get called out as sexist or mansplaining or something?
It's a possibility of that. I could see that. I do have another I have another theory as well, but I really want to hear what Mauler has to say about it.
Well, so I was going to start with I don't know if you guys have seen Marriage Story. There's a particular scene in that I've always remembered, and I always bring it up whenever this conversation comes up. But they're filming some movie, and there's an advisor for either science or the environment or something, because they're filming a film that relates to that. And they're walking out and they're celebrating like how well everyone's doing. It's a fun experience, blah blah. And they see this guy and they say, "Oh, how accurate is it?" And he goes, "Not even close." They just walks off, and it's just like, "Oh, okay." And it's like they hire people who actually have these jobs but don't listen to them because they're there for show. But even worse is we have people like take Pablo Hidalgo, for example, who was cited by Leslie Headland as being the law master, so to speak. She passes everything through him, and then all the scripts pass through Dave Filoni. I think that they're the kind of people who, if you are going to interrupt or destroy anything that's come before, and obviously that refers to Star Wars canon, or literally realistic anything, physics or whatever have you, they'll easily fold on it the second that anyone gives them an argument that probably relates to anything beyond. So, like, take, for example, it would be too much effort to not do it, so yeah, it'll be fine, nobody's going to care. Or, yeah, I mean, hyperspace kamikaze, what does it matter? That sort of thing, like a low effort, low care, and then people who are hired and probably ignored just get the job done, which I imagine a lot of people are actually getting preferential hiring for, not just for whatever towing the line of whatever point of view that they want them to have, but also getting it done under a particular time restriction, right? Like, a lot of people are supposed to come in and just get the fucking thing done, and that will include someone saying, like, you can't have a fire like that, guys, that's not going to work. They're like, nobody's going to care, it's Star Wars, which is really regrettable to see the artist saying shit like that, because you can see that the rot would have started with a lot of people who defended it that way. You see it online all the time. The people like Patrick Willems who say, like, what the fuck ever, it's for kids, it doesn't matter. And then people like that somehow end up getting the job of making this stuff. Mm-hmm. And so it's just like a perpetual cycle of absolutely killing it. Because, we've been complaining now for, I don't want to be too dramatic, but like a fucking decade. And it's not exactly getting better. Meanwhile, the people who have been saying, shit like it's Star Wars has always been this way. Didn't you see when the Super Star Destroyer was getting taken down in Return of the Jedi, there was a fire on there? And then you have people being like, well, it's an exhaust of all of the oxygen in the actual ship getting blown out into space. That's not inaccurate. It's just you can't have a fucking campfire. And then they'll be like, oh, shut up.
Yeah, and then another one I heard was, there's noises, there's sound in space in Star Wars, and that, again, it's not a good argument, because you could argue that it's basically non-diegetic, so it's for the benefit of the audience, but the characters in world don't hear that.
That's the argument I've always made as well.
And same thing as music, like,
yeah,
when Luke blows up the Death Star, he doesn't hear the sparkly John Williams music, just the audience does. Same thing, he doesn't hear
That's
the explosion.
The question they've got to answer. The sounds we hear in space, do the characters hear them? I don't think they do.
Yeah, they wouldn't. But where the campfire, it's literally a campfire the character's trying to put out.
Are you saying that there's not an orchestra and choir in the abandoned mining installation who are shrieking the power of one, the power of two, the power of many? You're saying they're not actually there.
Happening. That's the only time that
but yeah, it's definitely a very regressive thought process, as Mauler was saying, to boil it down to who gives a shit. It's fictitious. It's space fantasy. To have that thought process is literally rotting from the inside. As soon as you lose internal continuity of anything, you disrespect your own, lore, and not your own, even your own internal physics. You've lost the point of even making what you're doing. You might as well make something completely different with completely different rules, completely different everything. There's no reason to even bother using what you do. One other thing that I've kind of been thinking about relatively recently is, so obviously when Disney took over, the first thing they did was, at least in creation, if you want to call it that, was TFA. They made The Force Awakens, which was laden with a lot of mystery boxes, because that was J.J. Abrams' style. That's what he does. That's what he's always done. And it seems to have permeated into almost everything that they do. This mystery box, it varies from show to show, movie to movie, but it seems to be that it has become the prevalent style of writing for Star Wars, that we have to have these mystery boxes that maybe don't even, more than likely don't even get addressed by the end of what we're doing. And you did see some of that in this as well. And I just want to know if you guys have noticed that same thing. It's almost like that was the like the base layer that everything was built upon, and everyone's just using that same problem.
Well, it's an issue in storytelling where they don't understand what interests people. And so like in this show, you have Soul, who keeps going, I'm about to admit what I did. I'm about to tell
exactly
you
what I was
what I
thinking
did. I'm just as soon 5 minutes. I'm gonna go to the bathroom. When I come back, I'm gonna explain everything. And like he literally does that every episode until the final one, and still never says what he never finishes his story to Osha. And I mean, to me, that's like the ultimate mystery box style storytelling. And even in the interviews with Leslie, like they ask her, one of them, it was like after episode 6 or 7 or something, and they're like, what do you know, how does this? And she answers with, stay tuned, subscribe to Disney Plus. Like that's all they know how to do, are constant, we're about to tell you, just keep hanging on, please keep watching. And it goes nowhere.
Well, I think what's more important there is that the idea that the stranger is femme coded and is wearing feminine clothes and is cooking for Osha. So I think those are more important dynamics than the actual plot. Has this show been the worst ever use of the Rashomon effect, where you constantly go back to see events in the past seen from different people's perspectives? I can't think of a more clumsy and inept and laborious use of that technique in any film or show in history.
Yeah, because typically you get a different perspective. But
yeah.
This affirmed everything. Like when I saw episode 3, I said in when I reviewed that episode, I was like, okay, there's no way May started the fire. Like obviously we're being led astray. That is clearly she dropped the thing and there was a small fire and she got scared and she ran off. But like the larger fire had to have been started by somebody else. And I thought when they do the flashback, they're going to reveal it was the Jedi all along. Mm-hmm. And then holy shit, it really was her. It really was an oil lamp that would fit in a child's hand, held enough oil. This is Gabriel's fucking horn oil lamp in the middle of this hallway that has enough oil to burn down this entire fortress on multiple levels, causing multiple explosions. And they affirmed that's actually what happened. And I thought, how?
And yet not take out the generator system to the extent that you can't open the doors 16 years later.
It's so funny too, because there was speculation, which the show doesn't deserve, of like, oh, maybe the Horn Lady, she sabotages the generators to blame it on the Jedi to give them cause to attack the Jedi. Like, oh yeah, that could make some sense. Or the Jedi actually sabotage the generators, like in a sort of, maybe Indara is the kind of Jedi master who might do that, and it gives them reason to say, you guys can't control this area, you guys can't take care of the children, you know, some kind of deceptive way of getting access to the kids. I never expected the truth to be, no, it was May. It was everything you saw in episode 3. It was May.
The only thing that was added was how the mystery box from that episode that I took out, that I was kind of at least sort of curious, is how all of the other space lesbian witches died in a pile just in the middle of this room. And it turned out that they just got their communication got severed. It was like, I don't even understand how that worked. It was just
the showrunners don't either. They just want you to think of it as a morally ambiguous act. Did you read that interview where she said that was like a selfish act on the part of
taking your friend and getting him away from mind control? So selfish.
Yeah.
How dare you not want him to sit there and be completely tortured from within?
I mean, I don't like the go ahead, Mauler.
Just I agree with what Despot said earlier. It might be the most morally repugnant show that has come out for Disney, even though there's quite a bit of competition. This one particularly, so many ideas that are clear on screen that you're just like, that's just horrible. But the show is like, no, it's not. And then they show things that are like, okay, and they're like, this is horrible.
Yeah.
There's also an interesting aspect of this regarding tropes, because it's a very tropey show, and it's bizarre because it utilizes the good twin, evil twin trope, and I have a little section in my video where I go over the history of that trope, and this does it beat for beat exactly as it's always been done. So, it goes way back. It goes back to Alexandre Dumas, who wrote The Man in the Iron Mask. And that's 19th century. So this trope is literally hundreds of years old. And how it works is you have a good twin and a bad twin. And usually it's a kind of rags to riches type plot whereby the good twin becomes richer. That's a very common one. And there's always a twist at the end, always. And whenever you look at all the movies that utilized it, it was popular in like the 40s and 30s, like way back. It's a very old trope. And there's always a twist at the end. And there were a couple of movies in the 90s that did it. Leonardo DiCaprio, The Man in the Iron Mask, was one. And then The Simpsons even made fun of it because it was so tropey and dumb, and it had become so obvious that The Simpsons actually made fun of it in a Halloween special. So it was bizarre to me that they do this trope, but they just do it exactly like the old trope. They didn't try to do anything different. It's exactly what you expect, because everybody knew that May was going to turn good, or sorry, that Osha was going to become the evil one, and May was going to become good.
Yeah,
and that's the exact dramatic the template for the trope, the dramatic beat template for the trope.
I hate it when a show became good. When a show makes me expend energy speculating on, okay, what could the twist be? And then it's nothing. There's never any, and I hate expending that energy only to find out, no, it's the literal thing.
They truly had so little to work with, because you can blame JJ, and I absolutely would, but in the same vein that lots of tropes start from some kind of leading item that makes it popular, I feel like Empire is where we draw it all back to, the big reveal of parentage. It's like, oh, Star Wars is now intrinsically going to have some kind of reveal, often familial, that'll make us recontextualize the entire story. The thing about Empire is there was never some kind of like, it's not like the film is built up with, there's something about Darth Vader you don't know, and every character is saying that, and then we spend maybe the other film as well getting to the point of, what is this mystery? Tell us, what is the answer? And even if they did, the answer would actually have been satisfying in terms of giving us something from that notion. But instead, it's more so the film is built up of, what does it mean for Luke to attack and kill Darth Vader, and should he, and how does he feel about him being the person who took his dad away from him, and lots of character-driven stuff. And then the fact that they had, correct me if I'm wrong, but the throwaway secret to keep it all under wraps was Obi-Wan killed his dad, right? That was what the actors thought it was.
No, Obi-Wan killed your father was the line that
which is like,
David Prowse said.
To me, pretty fucking clever, because that is actually a pretty interesting reveal as well, but it's not the actual one. And then you need to know that it's like Empire was crafted with such care by comparison to what have we got for the audience with this. And you find out like the reveal of what the Jedi did is so fucking weird. Like if you go through each part of it very slowly, and you had Leslie with you, be like, Leslie, what parts of this do you think are so immoral that they deserve half of them to kill themselves or let other people kill them? And you know what I mean? Like you'd be outright confused, and she'd just be like, well, it's complicated, isn't it? I think in one of her interviews she said it's much more clean cut in Phantom Menace because Qui-Gon is taking a slave from his horrible situation, but it doesn't always go that way. Sometimes Jedi turn up to a place, detect children are in danger, go in, and then get attacked by a ring wraith, stop it, and then they get mind controlled and have to save their best friend who is trying to kill them, and accidentally, I guess, kill all of the space witches as a result. I know everyone has already said it, it's just, what were we supposed to think about that? That it was immoral?
Yeah. Oh, well. So let's talk about Leslie Headland, because I want to explore the disconnect between the crapness of the show and her pronouncements and expectations about it. So in an interview, without getting too explicit, James Friend, who was the DP of that episode, when he shot looking into the lightsaber, we've always seen the lightsaber as a phallic symbol. Headland, exactly. You said it, not me. To look inside it, to look down it, to see its... And then another one. I'll skip that one. I'll go to this one. I want to know about the process of outdoing yourself every time. That's what made these fight sequences so impressive. Headland, second unit director Chris Cowan and I, we were shooting for immortality. We were like, we are fucking going for it. We want to top Duel of the Fates. We want to top the train station in the Matrix. We'll settle for nothing less. I will leave it up to the viewer as to whether or not we achieved that. But in my heart of hearts, I was like, we achieved that as far as I'm concerned. Greg, did she achieve it?
I've always heard this joke about like lesbians having penis envy, and I was like, okay, that's just something that, like, I don't know. I've not known a lot of lesbians in my life, so I was like, okay, I'm not gonna run with that. But oh my god, like she is the stereotypical penis envying lesbian. Everything is about sex for her. We my wife and I had an argument when I was talking about the script I was going to write, and I was like, "You didn't see episode 6? Oh my god, it was so sexual. They were on the beach, whatever." And my wife was like, "Oh no, that wasn't supposed to be sexual. They're not trying to hook them up." And I'm like, "Oh, they definitely are." Found this interview where she's like, "It's absolutely sexual. You know, the lightsaber represents a dick, and I made her hand veiny while she was gripping it, and like, oh my god, are you? Why? Like, I've never understood people that think swords are phallic symbols when they're just efficient weapons. Like, it's just a sharp piece of metal that you can swing very easily. And fucking coomers that need to go outside and touch grass have been like, oh, it's sword fights are actually homoerotic, queer-coded events. And it's like, nope, it's people trying to kill each other with a sharp piece of steel. That's all that they ever have been. There's nothing homoerotic about them.
It's the same people who say that about missiles and buildings. It's the same exact people who say those two things.
Yeah. It's just...
I mean, the Romans had swords and they had phallic symbols. They literally had like little penises that they would wear or they would decorate the house with, and the idea was that it would increase the fertility of the couple living there, things like that. If people want phallic symbols, there's lots of phallic symbols on cultures, but they're usually just literal penises, like little penis statues and things. But the idea that swords are hidden phallic symbols, if people want those kind of symbols, they'll make them. They're not shy about it, but it's bizarre. It really is bizarre, this idea that men have this secret weird psycho homo obsession with penis. It's this weird lesbian thing. I mean,
if that is her take, though, like everything is sexualized, that I haven't seen it in any interviews, and I've actually quit reading them because at this point, I haven't even finished my script yet, and it's going to take forever. Because I just keep finding new information. I'm like, oh my god, that's interesting. I need to put that in. But I haven't seen her talk about why she has the witches doing their ceremony worshiping next to a giant hole. If the lightsabers are phallic symbols, then their lesbian witches they worshipped a big hole. Like, is that not intentional or was that accidental? It's just, oh my god. In that interview, they talk about the cave that Rey goes into. The interviewer was like, "Oh, she went into a moist cave of self-discovery that was obviously coded." That like, no, it fucking wasn't. It was just a cave of knowledge. Like, you're talking about old tropes. How old is the cave of knowledge? That shit is centuries old.
Well, after a lecture on Sigmund Freud was asked by a student, like, what's with the phallic symbolism of your cigars? And he said, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar.
Yeah, Greg, I'm thinking maybe your wife should be worried because I'm sort of getting the idea that lamp behind you is kind of gay coded because it looks a little bit like a phallic symbol to me.
It is. I'm
surrounded by phalluses. Hate the use of the word coded everywhere now. Driving me nuts. Like it just feels like an excuse to not have to delve further into anything, instead just being like, look what I noticed, this shape. And you're just like,
just wait a year and it'll just be a noise that's deaf to the average person anyway. So
when the lightsaber gets chucked aside and you see inside it and its crystal is broken or whatever, so that's literally broke dick in Leslie Headland's mind.
You're looking down the urethra into the
is that impotence? Is that supposed to symbolize impotence? Like
it's a penile fracture.
Well, yeah, and then it goes blue to red, meaning it's bleeding, as in you broke it and now you need to go to hospital. Very straightforward.
Also, the crystal was sticking out of the side, which can be some sort of STD.
What does it say about Darth Maul if he's got like the two blades?
That is actually a phallic coping mechanism because Maul had some bottom surgery from Obi-Wan and it was more excessive than he would have hoped for, and now he kind of regrets it. He's in detransition, so he uses the double lightsaber as a kind of coping mechanism, as a phallic substitute. So it's understandable for Maul. I'll say that.
Well, what does the lightsaber whip represent then?
That would be impotence right there. It's
a floppy wiener.
Yeah, it's floppy.
Floppy wiener. I don't know about that. Anyway,
I think that was just to tell us that she was actually Darth Kunta Kinte's real master.
Yeah, so I'm just fascinated by these interviews that Leslie Headland has a total blind spot, and how you can get that far removed when you're talking in these grandiose terms of what you're making, and you've got like a fat Jedi And you've got a gopher who's pulling out wires in a spaceship and no one knows why. So just the disconnect is amazing.
Well, the fat Jedi and the Twinkie Jedi and all of these, it's just this perpetual mission to try and just keep knocking the Jedi down as many pegs as we possibly can. We can get the pegs into the ground. We will knock them all the way into that peg. And it's working in the sense that it's pushed away everybody that would have fought against it at this point for the most part, but it's not working on a conceptual level. Every time they try to do it, just like we said here, the events themselves don't add up to these are bad people. They just add up to an idiot's idea of what a bad person is. So.
Who here has seen Echo? I just quickly want to ask, have you seen Echo?
No.
You know,
I think I saw half
scene.
an episode.
What do you think is worse? What do you think is worse? Because I can't make up my mind. The fight scene between May and Osha in The Acolyte, or the fight scene between Maya and all the thugs in Echo?
Has to be The Acolyte.
I think the Acolyte one is especially bad because they're clearly not even the strikes are not even coming close to their intended targets, and you can usually at least kind of make up for that, but it's almost like they zoom in on it in Acolyte for the cinematography. Like they basically like, at least with Echo, they would try to move the camera around a little bit. Here, it's like a stationary camera. You can see exactly where they're not hitting. Also,
Echo had the stuntmen who were quite impressively, it has to be said, throwing themselves through the air.
With Osha and May, it's, you know, when you see like a dance production and they're doing rehearsals and there's like the person saying and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and it's like you can almost see like everything broken down incrementally to I swerve here, this limb goes here, and then we twist here, and then this thing goes here.
It's very totally kata. It's very like kata for anybody who did like karate. It's very kata of them.
Yeah.
One thing I will say though,
I was going to say quick, shouldn't May have the dominant fight because she has the Force and Osha doesn't?
They should both be. Well, no, they should both be equal. They're the same person.
No,
if one of them progresses, they should be the same the whole time.
That means something in different parts of the show.
Yeah.
Did Osha stop her Jedi training like 8 years prior, something like that?
Something
I don't think they ever specifically said the year, but it was years prior. Yeah.
Well, then May would just destroy her.
Well, so the show establishes the Osha's shit with the Force. She can do barely anything with it. May defeats her using the Force in the prior episode, or rather episode 5. She's not developed anything since then. She put on the Cortosis helmet, sure, but she like quote unquote unlocks her Force ability when she does the shit with Soul. So up to that point, I was like, why isn't May just using the Force? They don't use the Force in that fight.
No.
Because
they're just punching each other, and for some reason they have the exact. Even if you and I or anybody here were trained in the exact same way by the same master, so to speak, I don't think we'd be symmetrical in our fight. But those two have not only had not the same training, they're not the same. Like they haven't lived the same lives, and even if both of those things were the same thing, you wouldn't necessarily fight symmetrically.
Yeah.
So here's the one thing, and I said this in my video. I would have given them a lot of, if the show had built up some goodwill, I would have gave them a lot of leeway, because to tell you the truth, that fight scene was actually probably incredibly difficult to work out, because it's not like there's actually two people. It's that they're not twins that are fighting. It's the same person. There's a body double they superimpose over. They have to make that all work. It is not an easy thing to do, but they did not build up any goodwill or do themselves any favors with the cinematography at all, and that's the big problem.
Well, I put up a picture here of, because in the middle you've got Yord's Padawan, who's in the first episode, and then we never see her again.
Yep.
And she joins the great pantheon for me of Disney Star Wars people who, oh, that person was there. And that's all you can say about them. So you got Wade, who makes
Wade, man. Yeah. He's my favorite character,
Yeah, always remember Wade.
And then you got the fat Jedi guy who was there, and then that's all you can say about him, and then he wasn't there anymore. And then two lesbians kissing in the background who were there, and then that's it. And then
they weren't there in the Chinese version of the movie.
That's true.
So they were there, and then they weren't.
The guy with the gold faceplate thing who was in Ahsoka, was it? And then he was there, and that's all you can say about him is just that he was there.
Man, there were so many posts loving him, but he's not anything. So
he's not anything. Yeah. So this is my Mount Rushmore of people who were there but who weren't anything. which is a very strange subcategory.
Well, the weird Stormtrooper one is just, it's kind of similar to what's her face, the silver one from Phasma, where it was they were just designed to be toys. That's all it was. It was just action figure.
Does look pretty cool.
I don't know. I'm not sure about if any of the rest of these have action figures, but I can guarantee you that was because a lot when I used to actually collect Star Wars, one of the things a lot of people would buy a lot of was Stormtroopers, Clone Troopers, because a lot of people do dioramas of them and stuff like that. So that was probably what that was designed for.
So is Lord's Padawan the person who's just would she be the one on the Mount Rushmore who's just purely the most there, and that's all you can say about them?
Maybe she'll be in season 2, man. Avenger Master.
I guess.
Would you echo the Padawan?
The Padawan.
Yeah. Don't lie now.
Well,
don't look at the mantelpiece. Definitely would.
don't look at the mantelpiece while you're stoking the fire. That's all I'll say about that.
The bat ears and everything.
That would be. I don't know about that. But yeah, I mean, Wade, at least he went out in a blaze of glory, even though we didn't have the pleasure of getting to know him all that particularly well. Jediah Beatties had some sort of role in staking out the apothecary.
Yeah, it was a Swiss roll. That's what it was. That's a roll he had.
And did Goldface guy do anything?
Stood there menacingly.
I think he just stood there.
I think he just stood there. Greg, who's your favorite person who was just there out of this?
Just because we're so fresh on it, Yord's Padawan. That's my favorite one because they didn't like the rest of these were kind of in the background, but she was introduced. I think she even has a name. If I go back and watch episode 1, like she's there, and she wasn't just a background lesbian or something or a gold-faced set piece. Like he's like, this is my Padawan. She's with me, and then in the next scene, she's gone and never comes back, and it's like, did they have a plan for her? Was she going to do something? And then they cut it. Like, I'm fascinated with how this show got made.
She was probably somebody's niece. They just put in there. That's probably the situation. Because that could have easily been that whole role, that whole 10 seconds that she was on screen could have been easily filled by X-23.
There's a mystery.
Just the fact that it's just episode 1 as well. There's something perfect about that, where okay, new characters being introduced, so they're going to go on an arc. Nope, that's just it. She's just there.
I mean, if this were like a sitcom, like the extra people from The Office that just don't continue to be on the show, like that makes sense. They cut those people because they were writing it as they went. But this, like, what happened?
Help me out with this, because I've seen The Acolyte twice now, and I can't figure out what exactly the intention was with this. So during the sort of Jedi versus Les Bene Gesserit fight, She-Bowser turns into smoke and kind of, I think she retreats, like she escapes the whole mess, right?
Yeah,
what happened to She-Bowser? What happened to She-Bowser?
White Maul?
Yeah, White Maul. I call her She-Bowser. What happened to her?
I call her Spike Face.
I thought she would be the Jedi, like the head Jedi Master who trained Milo Ren.
I don't recall them showing her dead. Actually, now that you mention it,
in an interview, Leslie, like somebody mentions that in an interview, and she does the stay tuned for season 2.
That's
but it doesn't make any sense, because if She-Bowser did escape, why didn't she come back after the fire to try to find her kids, or why didn't she go and pursue her kids? Like if I was in the middle of a battle and my children were involved, the very first thing I would do after the battle is to seek out my children. Like it doesn't make any sense.
Nothing about the show makes sense. I mean, that's why I can't finish my script, because I was like, oh, I'll just mention a few plot holes, and then I started writing them down, and I was like, well, there's 10, 12. I mean, I have 4,000 words on plot holes, and I haven't gotten to the contrivances, the force powers, the motivations, oh my God, you just at a certain point, I can see why it's 4 hours for you, because you either have to
my plot holes section. I listed the plot holes and without going into any detail, and it's like 7,000 words long. It just goes on and on and on.
Like massive shit. Like the fact that no one knows that May exists. Like nobody ever asked Osha during her Jedi training, hey, why are you so upset? And she never said, well, my twin sister's dead and my parents. And nobody went, your sister? There's nothing on the file that says you have a sister. Like, how the fuck did that mystery continue to go on for years
Mauler, in terms of runtime to plot hole ratio, is this the most you've ever seen?
Oh, it's staggering. That was a conversation that was had, I think, on Open Bar about it might be the worst for that, the most incoherent nonsense per second passing, because and that's obviously on plot, on the world building, on I would even go as far as character, right? Like the little we get, I think they're assassinated at every fucking corner. Like people commented on it, but the motivations for Soul, for May, for Osha, even for the fucking Basil creature, they're switching between scenes.
Yeah,
you can't keep track of what anybody wants. And then there's those like frustrating decisions. You know, they want to have their how stupid it was that he kills the Nazgul and she says, "Turns out I was good," and then dies, which is the stupidest fucking thing ever. Whatever. She has every reason to lie. Why believe her? What she did was insane. You had every right to stab her. But of course, it works on him. He's like, "Oh, geez, I did everything wrong. Oh, I'm so sad." And so he has this moment of letting the bad girl hit him over and over again, while his friend is having to deal with like 10 archers, and it's his responsibility to save the girls and to protect his fellow Jedi. But he's just wallowing in his own sadness because one of them, the women told him, "I was actually the good guy when you killed me." It's the kind of shit that really bothered me, that he was one of the most experienced, yet kind of the most useless. I was waiting for the actor to be given something to work with, and there's like one scene in the entire show where he gets to actually emote in such a way that I was like, "Oh, look, they didn't have any goofy shit ruining this." He got to actually just act. But that lasted for about 5 seconds. It was in the episode when nothing happened.
You got to be more specific.
4? You talking about? Was that 4?
6?
5. I don't know.
I want to go back because Leslie Headland used the word dramaturgically, I think, which is unforgivable. So I just want to go back to this one here.
Unforgivable.
Yes, I was going to get right into that. I love enemies to lovers who have held blades to each other and lightsabers to each other like that. This is my bread and butter. I really love that we get this moment where he goes to offer a gentle touch and she's like, "Psych," laughs. Headland, "Get away from me." Then it's like this passing through, stepping over the threshold that actually will bring them closer together, which is so interesting. But the motivation I gave to Manny in that moment, in theater, we would call it dramaturgically. For why is he stepping over to do that? Because it said it in the script was, "You have been in this position. If you have a red lightsaber, you have felt this level of despair, rage, and dejection. So go over there and let her know that you have had that experience." And he just did that beautiful thing. I was like, Jesus Christ. Not sure if I got quite that same visceral reaction from that scene as Leslie intended.
I'm still trying to figure out what dramaturgically means. I'm assuming that it means like drama surgically. Like I think that's what she's going for. But
dermatologically,
I thought it was like metal.
Yeah, like I you got to that word and I just kind of no other word registered after that as my brain slowly shut off. I'm trying to figure out what that meant.
She keeps describing Manny's character as like so sweet and authentic, and during the show, all I ever saw him as was a manipulator. Like she's, "Oh, you're going to comfort her." I just saw her as Palpatine going over to her, being like, "Yes, yes, you've done it." Like that's what I got from that scene, was him going, "Fuck yeah, you killed him. Now you're one of us," kind of thing. It wasn't like a, "I've been where you've been. I understand what you're going through." But she describes him that way, and I really would have been cool to see that on screen, but that's not at all what happened.
We never even got to see what their reaction would have been had they known the full context. The show like cowardly moved away from it. You know, telling Soul like, "You killed the mum, how could you?" And he like feebly can't explain himself. It's just like The Last of Us 2. He's staring at the character like, "Can you please mention what happened? We saw what happened. Tell them what happened." And the thing is, May says, like, I saw him. I was there. I remember. It's like, you were young as fuck. You have no idea what you saw. Soul could just be like, "Yeah, you think you saw me killing your mum, but in reality, I was actually preventing her from killing you." That should have, honestly, that should have been the big reveal, that you've been trying to hunt me your whole life and you didn't even realize that I was saving your life.
Yeah. Ugh. Well, I was intending to do like a 5 minutes on this, and somehow we stretched out to an hour. But that's fine.
You invited Mauler on the show. You expected us to get done in 5 minutes.
You can never do 5 minutes on the Acolyte. There is just too much wrong with it.
So much
Yeah.
failure.
Well, twist is this has made $80 million in its first big opening weekend. It's been a huge smash, which is great. And you all know Dan Murrell, the film reviewer. Used to be on Screen Junkies and stuff like that. He's kind of like a touchstone for me. If I find myself drifting too much, I always go back to him to sort of find out where my moral center is. And he's living in Arkansas now, and he said this on his show: Hollywood just kind of struggles to predict what happens to movies that aren't targeted at that exact typical moviegoer. And we're seeing that with Twisters, because the movie performed exceptionally well. And really, what lifted it up to these heights are what are derogatorily called the flyover states. I even read it in some of the articles talking about the box office. It did very well in the flyover states. Yeah, those would be the states where I live, and the states where a lot of people live. And it's shocking because there's so many box office analysts that are like, well, how could this happen? If you make a movie that's set in Middle America, it's made by filmmakers from Middle America, that's marketed to Middle America, we're shocked that this movie is going to do so well in Middle America. So that's Dan Marl. And I like that he said that. So Greg, you're kind of a redoubtable sort of, you're a flyover country kind of guy.
Oh, yeah.
Are you going to go see this film?
I did not. I actually kind of forgot that it was coming out, and it doesn't look bad, but I think I predicted that this was going to be a flop in our big predictions a few months ago, because it's a sequel to an older movie that is just not like a cult classic. I'm pretty surprised by this one, not because of, you know, its appeal to the Midwest. I just am surprised that everybody's down to go see this sequel to a movie that just isn't so amazing. So I was one of the doubters on that one, but I can see why people are enjoying a good action flick. Like, I don't see anything wrong with this one. It isn't drawing me into a theater.
Yeah. Look at these opening weekends. Again, this is just something I swiped from Dan Marl. So the second half of the year, coming out of the summer, looks like Hollywood's on a roll now. I mean, Inside Out 2 was a smash. Twisters is a smash. Despicable Me 4, big smash. So it's kind of good, I guess, because we want to see success and we want to see a turnaround in the industry. There's not exactly a great deal of originality out of these ones, but still, people are going to the cinema, and that's what we want.
Yeah,
what are the... Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Greg.
No, you go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, what are the commonalities here? Because you've got Hollywood analysts in rooms looking at these thinking, okay, guys, what do they have in common that we can replicate that'll allow us to manufacture more big hits? And just looking at it for a start, none of these are preacher pandering. Mm-hmm. None of them are woke. And as it turns out, audiences actually quite like that. They just want their entertainment to be entertaining. I mean, some people said that about June Part 2, but I think that was that was audiences having become oversensitive to Hollywood making everything political, accusing Chani of being a girl boss and all this nonsense. But that definitely wasn't the case.
It was the pendulum swinging too far back the other way.
Yeah.
There's no homework required in any of these films. You don't have to know complex backstory about obscure figures and characters from Marvel TV shows and stuff like that. You just go into the cinema and watch it, and and all these things involved.
It would have helped with Dune. It helps with Dune, but it's not required. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I mean, especially with a cinematic visual spectacle of that quality, you could just be someone who has no interest in Dune, and you would still enjoy the movie just on a purely visual level.
Yeah. I took my daughter, my 16-year-old, and she loved it. And I mean, like, on the way to the theater, I was like, oh, you might need to know that there's this guy, Paul, and his mom, and here's like 30 seconds that I can try to sum up the first half of Dune. So I did that as well as you would be able to do. And then she still loved it.
And the other thing as well is big visual spectacle. Like Inside Out 2, obviously it's the highest possible, most most elite animation. And it does look great. It's a great looking movie. Dune Part 2, obviously. Denis Villeneuve is is Denis Villeneuve becoming a brand? Do you know the way Christopher Nolan is a brand? Is Denis Villeneuve getting to the point now where he's like a brand director where people will show up because it's a Denis Villeneuve movie?
I think after Dune, I will if I see his name attached to something.
Yeah, good question.
I think the Dune movies might end up being the thing that does that, but I think he needs one more. I think if he has all three, and it's all three of them are hits, then that will be.
Yeah, then he's sort of he's like a Christopher Nolan brand, like he's up there. Yeah.
Nolan already had great movies before it, and then like the general audiences really got on that when he had what was it? Obviously, Dark Knight, and then it was Inception was another one that was really big with general audiences.
Yeah, Inception. Inception, I think, is the one that really made his brand.
Yeah,
I mean the Batman movies too as well. Twisters, obviously huge visual spectacle. Godzilla X Kong.
I'm shocked. I'm shocked.
I'm not shocked at that because Godzilla fans are a group that will just go see anything Godzilla.
I guess I just don't know any of them, and it's just my own personal. I saw that and I was like, that's the dumbest shit. I mean,
I thought it was hilarious. You see the internet. My favorite YouTube controversy this year was the Godzilla X Kong controversy, where basically it was like Platoon and Movie Cynic versus the MonsterVerse fans.
Yeah, that was great.
I mean, it's surprising, but I had a feeling that was going to happen for him because back when what was it called? The King of the Monsters came out. We were quite critical of it on EFAP, and I was surprised by how much we'd piss people off. I was like, wait, what's going on? And it's like you criticizing a Godzilla movie for not having good plot, and it's like, well, yeah. And then he'd be like, why are you criticizing the human shit in it? No one cares. It's like, that's like the most of the movie. Like, what? I would rather it be better. And then, of course, something like a -1 comes out, and I don't know if you guys have seen it, but you'll see.
Oh, yeah, it's brilliant.
Oh, I don't mean if you've seen
-1's
the film.
incredible.
I mean, have you seen in the communities that surround Godzilla, they're like, ugh, people will think -1 is how all Godzilla films should be. And it's like, well written?
They were upset. They were upset with Godzilla -1. It's one of the best movies of the 20s so far.
They liked it, if not loved it, but it was they want Godzilla versus Kong sort of shit as well. They love the goofy nonsense. But I've always stood by this because this came up on one of the open bar streams. Why can't we have goofy nonsense films that are really well written? Isn't that what something like a Dodgeball or a Tropic Thunder is? They are goofy films to an extent, but some of the craft of the comedy or the spectacle is great. I find Godzilla X Kong, like I've seen Little Platoon's video and I was being described the events of it, and I was like, this sounds like fucking garbage. And it's like, yeah, but it's supposed to be. Like, okay. Why don't you say that to the director? See what they say. Like, your movie's garbage.
I watched it and I was bored throughout almost all the human scenes, but it's got its moments where you sort of laugh and you shove some popcorn in your mouth, but that's about it. Like, I mean, it is shite.
Well, I mean, I can sort of understand. I watched John Wick parts 1 and 2. I still haven't made 3 and 4, but I was watching parts 1 and 2, and I was like, yeah, this is dumb. Like, it's down. Like, on a base level, this is real stupid. But I'm loving it. Like, I'm absolutely into this. I'm loving the visuals. It's like a dance. The choreography is great, but at its core, this is a really stupid idea.
I mean, the fifth element.
I enjoyed the hell out of it, so it doesn't matter.
The fifth element is a good example of that. The fifth element, it's crazy, like visually, aesthetically, it's all over the place. But it's not even dumb. It's really coherent. It's a brilliantly made movie, but it's a great time. It's just a lot of fun. It's a crazy, up in the air action movie.
Do you think we could ever have a resurgence of the type of Airplane or Top Secret films where there's like visual puns and gags?
No, they killed it. The early 2000s killed that. When they were trying to turn everything into a parody of every single movie coming out.
You can trace the degradation. Like it was just iteration after iteration, Next Generation getting worse and worse and worse because you get to like Scary Movie. I love it, right, to an extent, but it's not anywhere near as good as its predecessors. And then the ones that came after that, be it something like a Scary Movie 4 or a superhero movie and stuff like that, you're like, ooh, they start getting really tacky and desperate in the jokes they were telling, and then they sort of just disappeared. And the comedies that relate to constant reference jokes, be it to pop culture or, as you mentioned, visual jokes and stuff like this, those scripts were marvelous. Stuff like Airplane, Top Secret, even moving forwards to something like an Austin Powers, we don't get that just at all anymore. It's really sad.
I think a lot of that because it's difficult to. It's great if you're in an American market, I suppose, but if you're like a guy in Bangladesh going to the cinema, you're probably not going to get half of the cultural references or jokes in the
true to an extent. But some of this stuff, I just have a little bit of a spark of hope that it's all counterculture related, and a lack of familiarity with the particular thing will actually spark a huge interest in it. So as though if someone were to make something as good as Airplane right now, that it would be hyper popular because of the fact that people don't even know that's what they're missing. Like if it came out, they go, "Holy shit, this is amazing!" And then we're all sitting there like, "Oh yeah, this is kind of like have you not seen to like the next generation of cinema watchers out there who might be like, I have no idea what Airplane is," and you're like, "Oh shit, okay." That's something I kind of hope sometimes. Naked Gun, yeah, absolutely. A lot of people see action this way, right? That it comes and goes. It has these like moments of not having as much popularity, but then it's like a micro version of that where it's going up and down much faster. John Wick, Extraction, and stuff, like they shoot up, but then there's some action films that come out that just fucking tank, and we're not even sure why.
I think in Airplane, that was the first time as a kid where up till then, if something was funny, I would laugh out loud, like brain kind of laughter. But when the autopilot comes up at the end of Airplane, that was the first time as a kid where you're laughing in perfect silence, but you're shuddering and your face is red and a tear is trickling out the side of your face, and then you slide off the couch. That's my first moment of that. Paralytic hilarity. That's the first time I've experienced that.
There's something to like because a question I've often asked different friends who are super into film is like, what do you prefer, the ultimate sort of enjoyment of a comedy or a drama where you feel to the point of almost holding back tears, or that you're laughing so hard you're almost dying? And it's hard to choose between them for me, because I often find with the drama side that it gives me something that I truly have to think about, right? That affects me or the life I've led. But with comedy, if any film can get me to the point where I'm almost struggling to breathe because of how much I'm laughing, it has infinite respect for me.
It's definitely comedy. It's definitely coming. It's really hard to do. And also, like, if I have to choose between a movie where I have to go look at a giant pile of dead Jewish corpses, or, you know, laugh my ass off, I'll just take the comedy.
Yep. Absolutely. Well,
I would take it if we haven't got any of them, you know, not anymore. There's still movies that can make you feel these days, but there's hardly any that make you laugh that hard.
That's true.
No, it's because almost all comedy has been muted by, you're not allowed to say that or you're going to cancel.
You know, I have a quick question just before we move on. Because it's been speculated that the Trump assassination attempt basically represents a turning point in the culture war, whereby the pendulum is going to force the pendulum swing, and it will open up space in the culture for things like parody and comedy, and basically it will allow for a right-wing perspective to come into the comedy space, because that assassination attempt basically forced people to realize that if you vilify one side or you try to gatekeep the culture, that there are serious consequences to it. What do you think? Do you think that could be a moment in the culture that forces this shift, whereby we can begin to be a bit less serious and a bit less vitriolic and stop taking things so seriously?
I think the assassination attempt, we've become so desensitized as a society, and we're so used to the churn of the 24-hour news cycle and just moving on to the next thing, that our shock system has become to such an extent that it's already starting to fade a little bit in the public consciousness. It's just becoming what would have been a generation-defining event 20 years ago is something that just happened and is already starting to fade and become a little opaque in the collective culture and mentality. I think it's just where we're at.
I mean, how can an event like that remain in the public consciousness when the next day Boogie takes a butter knife to his wrist, you know?
Exactly.
It's hard for everyone.
Hold on, what did Boogie do? I know he
threatened to cut himself with a butter knife on stream, I think.
Yeah.
I can see where Despot's coming from, though, where it might kind of be that shift. The only problem that I could see eventually happening, and I think there will be a time where things are kind of funny again, if that's what you're saying, like, oh, we're not going to be so sensitive. I think
let's
that eventually
stop being so serious. Let's stop. You know, you can't, if a guy makes the wrong statement, then you immediately accuse him of being a Nazi.
Yeah.
Let's realize there are consequences to that. There are fucking lunatics and crazy people out there who really believe that. Like, you need to stop that shit. Stop being so serious all the time, and just let the culture play itself out, and live and let live. Jesus, man.
I think there will be some time of that. I'm not sure if this is the event that's going to cause that, or if it has already, or it will. But eventually, what will end up happening is it will end up on the other side, and it will be kind of that hyper nationalistic kind of, like, you can't say anything bad about the United States or whichever country you're talking about, like, you know, like, and that kind of happened in the early 2000s, around, like, after 9/11, where if you said anything negative, you were kind of held to a standard, and that.
Oh yeah, I remember that stuff. They changed the name of French fries to Freedom Fries.
Yeah, stuff like that. So eventually, I do think that pendulum will swing. There will be a time of this kind of neutrality of comedy, and then you'll get back to that, and then eventually it will swing back again. It's just the way it works.
Well, I made a little note here because they're doing a Running Man sequel, which I think is absurd and ridiculous. Just, you know, it's a great film that belongs to its era. But it also made me think of a scene from the original Running Man and how close America actually Well, America is only like 2 or 3 steps away from this being reality, which is a scene from the original one called Climbing for Dollars, where it's like a talk show on the Running Man, where like a guy has to climb up a rope and grab money while there's like ferocious Dobermans at the bottom. And so that's the game show. And I think America's like 3 steps away from that.
I think you're being generous with 3. I think we're 1.
I mean, America's there.
It's more boring. Like we were talking about with the Acolyte, where people are like, "Oh, it's just silly. You don't have to worry. You don't have to think about it. Just turn your brain off. Don't think. Whatever." We're not close to this. We're close to Idiocracy, where there's the ad channel and there's Ow My Balls, and that's what people are going to want to watch. Like that's, I think, what we're actually getting toward.
Do you know what it is, actually? Whoever wrote this was giving people too much credit. They were thinking people will be willing to endanger their lives, but for money. No, they are willing to endanger their lives for selfies, right? Like, there's videos online of people walking up to a fucking grizzly bear in the wild and posing next to it like this for a fucking Instagram photo.
Have you seen those videos and photos of people who climb like the highest towers just to take a selfie? And then it's like, this person died doing this. And it's like, well, yeah. And you see them in their prime. They're so confident. They don't have any safety things. They're just climbing all the way up because they know it. They've experienced it. And you're like, that's great, man. But is it really just doing it for the selfie? Like, come on.
So the only thing that would keep, I think, people from wanting to do crazy things for money is already happening, and that's making the money worthless. So I don't think anybody's going to do a crazy thing for $1,000 when that's not going to do shit for you.
Well, put that in the context, Greg, that since we talked last, the American national debt now is growing by $1 trillion every 100 days. That's incredible to me. Yeah, I can't even get my brain around that.
Just don't pay them.
Maybe we'll have climbing for dollars, but with countries, and they'll just be climbing the ropes.
Anyway, so another stupid remake. Sergio Leone and Clint Eastwood classic A Fistful of Dollars getting remake from Hollywood and Italian industry vets. Why? It's the stupidest thing you could possibly imagine. There's no way this could be good. Ridiculous.
Man, I miss just why do we need remakes instead of just whoever's decided to make this? Why couldn't you take the film, inspire by it, and then add some new stuff in, do some remixing, make your own story instead of this?
Hard. That's difficult, Mauler.
Mauler, you sent out a tweet I just saw before where you were talking about Eamon. Eamon, I think it is, who's taken over in King's Landing. What was your gist of that? What did you think? What's your gist, your take on the show? Because I'm enjoying the hell out of it.
Oh, I love House of the Dragon right now. It's a breath of fresh air. I'm a sucker for any show that just has sort of micro expressions or little symbolic cinematography where I can just sit and watch and think about what they're trying to tell me is happening. To give an example, right? Well, are we allowed to do spoilers? Are we good for that?
I think so.
I'll do my best to avoid it if I can. But
a lot of the chat isn't watching it because they're all kind of averse to Game of Thrones right now. I think that's fair.
I made sure to catch up, so I'm good. My vote is yes.
Earn back its reputation somewhat, but myself, Gary, a few others have been trying to say to people like, this is not Game of Thrones season 8. You're not getting the treatment you got with that. In any case, at the end of episode 1, a certain someone is killed, and episode 2 opens with like an aggressive character trying to basically say like, is there any question as to who has done this? And it's being blamed on a particular other character. But as he says that, the camera pans over to a character who you would assume is absolutely innocent of any involvement. And it's just little things like that throughout the whole season where I'm like, oh shit, is the show kind of implying that they might actually be the one behind it? And then I was like, why would they do? And then I was like, oh, I guess it could make sense for this reason. And something like that isn't possible in a show like The Acolyte. That kind of like even a second dimension of thinking. Now, I'm not going to say Dragon is some kind of jaw-dropping, incredible TV that's going to change the world. It's just good TV. I'm enjoying it. I like it. There's plenty to talk about. There's flaws that I find with it, but as mentioned by the tweet, Aemond, Daemon, Otto, there are lots of characters that whenever they're on the screen, I'm just like, yes, let's do it. Do whatever you want. I'll be interested. Let's just see what happens next.
Yeah, you just like watching the characters because they're compelling and interesting. And I like the how everything is intricate and intermeshed. And I have to watch these episodes twice because I want to get the context for, okay, this house is aligned here and this house is in this location and these people are moving here and whatnot. So it's a show that kind of respects you. And plus the size of the sets are gigantic, and the lighting is lavish and beautiful. Everything looks great. I did a video on this, and try and guess what the number was, which one it was. So my last video is like 50,000, 50,000, 90,000, 5,000, 30,000, 50,000, 50,000. I don't know. It didn't connect for some reason.
Yeah, the interest in House of the Dragon is complicated. I've seen drinkers speculate that it's because there's not as many heroic characters as there would have been in a Game of Thrones type of show.
I guess
there's essentially zero. This is a lot of horrible people doing a lot of horrible things, with the best of them being someone who just hasn't killed children. Like, it's like, okay, well, that one's neutral, which can be a problem for a lot of people. There's obviously the scorn of Game of Thrones. There's the complications of pacing. I don't know about like I'll just leave it to the panel here, but how do you feel about Damon's journey in Harrenhal?
That is my one criticism of the show. I think he's been in Harrenhal too long.
I think
so. There's tons of stuff happening around him, and realistically, he would be reacting to it. He would begin to really lose his patience. He would be in contact with lots of other people around the kingdom to try to shore up his military and political situation, and he feels sort of stuck, like he's stuck in cement. Meanwhile, everything else is moving around him in the show. That's my one criticism. I think he's been there too long, and not enough is happening. I do like what the show is doing. It's presenting the audience with two possibilities. One, he's going mad, as Targaryens sometimes do, or he is being haunted. The hall is haunted by the ghost of some ancestor or something. And you look at it and you're trying to make up your mind, is he going crazy or is this place really haunted? That's really interesting. But if they could have done that a bit earlier rather than have him hanging around there, because he has been there too long, in my opinion. And he's maybe the most compelling character in the show, and he's a very physical, psychologically dominant force. He needs to be out there where the war is happening, and his character needs to have more movement and flexibility.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I think that they could have condensed all those scenes into one episode that is just around Daemon, and they could have interspersed little aspects from what's going on around him. But all of those, there's probably 4 at this point, I believe. These flash insanity moments could have all been in the same episode. I do appreciate that they haven't fixed it 100%. There's still some issues with it, but making the world feel bigger again, because that was one of the biggest problems obviously there was a lot of problems toward the end of Game of Thrones, but one of the biggest problems was that people would just show up. They'd be like, oh, I'm here, and now the next scene I'm in somewhere else.
The video game warping. The Acolyte has that as well.
Yeah, and they've eliminated that for the most part. They still do lean on it from time to time. You will get it. There was one scene, I believe in the first season, where I was like, that doesn't make sense. Even on a dragon, that would have taken way longer than you flew. But you can deal with it. But it is amazing how much actually having motivations and people stick to motivations makes you interested in the characers.
There's two really great examples of what you were saying in terms of transport. So, for example, there is what's the name of the guy with one eye?
Aemond.
So there's a scene where Aemond turns around to his general, and he says, okay, you've got to get over here, the Riverlands or something. It's a 2-week march, get going, right? Yeah. And that's just the show reminding you, this isn't Game of Thrones Season 8 where he can just bring out the Ocarina of Time and transport himself and his army over there. Like, he actually has to march. And there's another scene, something similar happens where it just reminds you of how big the world is. I forget what it is, but I love the fact that the scale of the world is being communicated.
I like the actor playing Sir Simon. He's a perfect actor. I love that guy.
Sorry. The other one was Hightower. I don't want to spoil anything, but they're looking for him and they can't find him. Whereas if it was Game of Thrones Season 8, it would have just been get Hightower, and then the next scene was there.
They'd open the door and he'd be right there. He's always been there the whole time.
I've been missing him. He was brilliant in episode 2.
Such a great character.
Yeah. Being missing for 4 episodes, I felt that shit. I've been waiting for his name to pop up in the credits and the openings every time, and I'm just like, nope.
So, who is everybody's favorite character? I'm just curious.
Mine is also Hightower.
Yeah,
brilliant as
It
him.
was so great seeing him become super exasperated and say insolent little pup and leaving us great.
Definitely.
The fact that he used the word feckless was very. I
was
love
good.
the
I
word
appreciated that.
feckless.
Yeah.
I'm not shocked by Mauler's choice. I know because considering the fact your love for Charles Dance and the similarity of the characters.
Oh, he's absolutely a variation on Tywin, and it's one that I really
Mm.
find interesting because he's a little more cowardly and possibly a little more like I don't know if you noticed from season 1 and 2, but he'll often make mistakes that Tywin never did. He'll like go too far in a conversation and he'll be bitten back and he'll cower. Like when Viserys has done it, Rhaenyra has done it, and of course Aegon himself did it. He'll like overstep, thinking he's got the power of the room to do so, but he doesn't, and he'll face punishments for that. Tywin always had the power that nobody could take over him in a room. He would always have it. He could say anything he wanted. And I find that dynamic. Yeah, I find that dynamic really interesting because it's almost crippling to Otto, despite the fact that he is so experienced, so intelligent. He is biased toward his own family, but similar to Tywin, once everything's sorted for the family, he actually is doing the pragmatic choices to get best for the kingdom going. You know what I mean? And that intelligence, that experience is being completely ignored. And so when Aemond was like, I want the best hand suited for the job, get Otto Hightower, I was like, yes, like it's so true. Get him back in there. And
I do like Otto. Yeah.
What solidifies him for me as a favorite character is that moment where he laments losing Viserys and having to deal with his insane idiot son, and saying, you know, do you never think of your father? And he's like, my father is dead. Fuck, you know, being careful. Fuck anything. I just want revenge. And Otto's like, oh, for fuck's sake. Like I can't wait.
The super chats have been racking up, and there's an extraordinary amount of generosity here. So I just want to go through some of them. So Evan Dubiel for $10 there. Get some R&R, boys. Only 37 days until Rings of Power season 2.
My goal is to get my Acolyte video out so that I'm ready for Rings of Power season 2.
Here we go.
This is our peak season. Yeah. God damn.
Oh, and there's also Rebel Moon director's cuts.
Oh my god.
What more can we really say about that, though? The director's cut is just going to have more explosions and stuff.
Block out 6 hours for that.
I'm done with Rebel Moon.
Yeah. M8 566 for $5. No, the real reason men fight is to release their pent-up gayness. Britta Perry.
No. It's actually gay coded. See, it's really man-on-man sex is what it is.
Well, think of all the phalluses, right? In a war. So many swords and missiles.
Yeah. Castle Dracula, $5. I never liked sand. Darth Vader while staring contemplatively at the planet Tatooine in a missing scene from a new...
Yeah, man.
Yeah, good point. Yeah. Yeah, it's a whole planet made of sand, so no wonder he didn't like it.
Well, yeah, I mean, up until what is it, Kenobi, he hadn't set foot back there, and then he did. So
yeah, I like this one. This is nice and simple, which is just M8 566 for $2. Mauler is long coded. I think that's probably quite true.
Oh, by the way, Mauler, did you see how many hours your videos add up to? The chat did it. They calculated it for you.
Oh, did
Greg
they?
did too.
Yeah.
What was the result?
Was it 74 hours?
No,
47
hours.
47, yeah. 47. That's not bad.
Not
47 hours. Yeah, I guess so. Okay. Well, it made 566 again for $5. We need Godzilla X Kong supported by minions fighting twisters on Arrakis, all while we explore the emotions of our kaiju. Yes, that would be a great idea. Box office bonanza right there.
Mega movie.
It's the kind of party movie we need to see again. Just making fun of the whole big visual spectacle.
Yeah, it made 566.
Got to get talented people to write,
Patreon.
though, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I love King of the Monsters, but I went to the Hollywood premiere, so when I rewatch it, I'm reminded of that experience. Basically, I'm a shill.
What's King of the Monsters?
That was the one with Ghidorah.
Oh, right, okay.
Who I loved, by the way. I thought Ghidorah was awesome, and I got to see him for like 5 minutes in total.
The best thing he did was destroy Fenway Park. That's all I have to say.
It's our dear friend Common People for £2. Mauler to sing May didn't start the fire.
Like the whole song, or just
Well, I think you'd have to improvise the whole lyrics, which would be incredibly difficult considering that it goes at the speed of 1,000,000 miles an hour.
But it's always been burning since the Jedi arrived on Mansandani.
Yeah, that worked.
It doesn't quite scan, but it's fine. Look at this. 20 real British pounds from Common People here. Thank you for your generosity. 1/3 Yord Fandar, Master Lakshay, Jackie Lon, Little May, Little Osha, Leslie Headland, Jetty, Master Soul, Master Kalnaka, Basil Brush.
You got to sing it. You got to sing it.
There's no way I'm good. What? No.
How do you sing this?
Hang on, let me try and figure this out.
It's 3 of them. He's got 3 messages, and it's May started the fire.
I think I'll try. Okay, this could be a disaster. Okay, Yord Fanda, Master Lakshay, Jackie Long, Little May, Little Osha, Leslie Headland, Jetty, Master Soul. Is that right?
No, I think it goes 1/3 Yord Founder, Master.
No, that's 1 out of 3.
Little May, Little Osha.
No, that's 1 out of 3. I think I had it.
Yeah,
so.
That's 1 out of 3. Yeah, there's 3 messages.
For £50, you got to sing it.
You were doing pretty good.
I got the first part, yeah, but then Despot threw me off my rhythm.
Sorry, man. I thought you were
start back at Basil Brush.
My fault.
Start over. Start from the top.
Yeah. Master Kalnaka, Basil Brush, Yoda fails to feel the Force, Mother Coral, Unknown Planet, Green Vernestra Row.
Oh, very good.
This is rough, but I'm earning my keep here. Okay. Oh, wait a minute. This is 3-3. This 2-3.
Yeah.
Okay. Plot holes. Tobin's gone. Jetty diabetes. Can't even run. Brand Dark, the twin, and I. Death Plague is his creepy guy. Space on fire. Pip's mean. Marg is the new queen. Force lol. Thread. Jesse. Star Wars fans say goodbye. May didn't start the fire. Yeah. It was always burning. Dark's been turned. We didn't start the fire. No, we didn't light it, but we tried to fight it. Phew.
I was getting into it too. I was starting to. The song actually kind of worked.
Thank you, common people. And it's only our friend Josh. Mubler, when can we expect your next Unbridled?
That's a great question that not even I know the answer to.
Great question for another time.
But just know that many projects are being worked on almost every day. I'm tooling away. You'll get them eventually, I swear.
My favorite thing is when they finally do show up, and it's just like, yes, I'm set for a week.
Pretty much.
How traumatic are your uploads? Like, it must take 8 hours just to process, and then you've got to worry about all the
copyright or something.
Yeah.
So, I've pretty much cracked editing now. Because you were saying you got some lessons learned from the whole, like, the longer you go, the more of a movie you show, the more
the more B-roll you need. Yeah.
The bigger one I learned is whenever you trim a piece out to account for copyright, they'll send like super bots after you. So I don't know if you've ever had this happen where
that happened to me, whereby I've trimmed a piece out and then it goes, the super bots come and it's just claims new parts, and then it goes down to 6 seconds, 5 seconds, and
it's ridiculous.
I had one where I just had to take the fucking video down, re-edit it, and re-up it.
So the Lord of the Rings coverage we did on EFAP, where we had the full trilogy, so that was like I want to say something like a 7-8 hour video, where it was a compilation of us reacting and talking about the whole trilogy. So much of those films footage was in there, but none of it was ever over, I think, a maximum of 3 seconds. Me and the editors that worked on it were never showing anything for more than 3 seconds, but they were all getting pelted with hits. Even Gandalf saying "You shall not pass" from start to finish, that segment, you guys know how much that is, that was hit. And we were like, no way, we can't show "You shall not pass." That's like, there's no fucking way that you could copyright me for that. But when you get that much of the movie in there, they will copyright you for that.
Yeah, it has to do with the percentage of the movie that you use. The more of the movie you use, the more likely you are to get a copyright strike.
It was a nightmare. And so I've learned a lot from
not a copyright strike, a copyright claim. A strike
claim, yeah. And so at this point, just like Despot, I've learned at this point pretty much how to game the system, or at least to stay safe. So most of the time, even the first upload, I can get lucky and have no claims. But the worst part is actually the upload speed. If I have a 6 hour video that's even 1080p, that's going to take. I have shit internet over in Wales, so it's a nightmare. If it's like you upload it fully, gets the check, and then it goes copyright claim. It's like, no.
What was your most bizarre ever copyright claim? Mine was 80-year-old footage of Adolf Hitler.
Mine's always been, and I absolutely hate the fact that this is a thing, it'll be like, you've got a claim, and I'm like, oh god, what is it? And you're like, God of War 2018 playthrough part 3, and I'll be like, why, what is it? And the claim will be someone's played it who's a big streamer, and they've watched a cutscene without any kind of commentary, and then they've put their shit through the copyright system, and that tracks onto me watching the cutscene without any commentary, and then they claim my video, and it's like, I'm sorry, what? And it's just like, yeah, this is like a stupid loophole that is allowed to happen somehow.
That's like that sounds like a content equivalent of the human centipede. Like it's just been through 3 digestive tracks.
You try to fight those because that feels like a slam dunk for.
Oh yeah, I usually push back. Well, so the thing is, some of them are on videos that get like 1 view per month, and I'm just like, I don't give a shit because they're unlisted playthroughs from like a decade ago. I'm just like,
that's bizarre. Oh well, it's time for everyone's favorite game show. Here we go.
See, I'm the best, man. I did it.
I love the game.
Okay,
shows.
well, Mauler, what we're going to do is you're going to see a song title and the band or artist, and the rule is very simple. You just have to tell me if it's an actual entry in the Billboard American Top 100 charts or if it's some random gobbledygook that I've made up.
Okay.
You understand the rules? Okay.
Sure. Well. But I'm not great with music, so this will be interesting.
Actually, that sometimes makes it easier because I'm not that great at music, and I've won this 2 times in a row. So,
all right. So let me find the right layout here. And your first entry is "Pussy Fairy" by Gene Ico.
Oh, this feels like it could be real. I've got nothing to go on here. Like I'm completely in the dark. Don't recognize the artist, but I know that that's possible. So.
I feel like real. It's real.
Yeah, I'm saying real. I'm going real.
For fuck's sake. My gut instinct told me real, but then I noticed the $2 signs, and I thought Echo knows that they love to use dollar signs, so maybe he's done that. So I'm just going to say it's fake.
Okay.
I'll go fake as well.
Okay.
This is the problem. See, this is how machine learning works. Echo is figuring us out, and he's gaming us. It's adaptive.
Well, I'm sorry, Mauler, but "Pussy Fairy" by Gene Ico is an actual entry on the Billboard Top 100 charts.
I had a feeling.
Okay.
What do you have to leave under your pillow to get asking for a friend?
Okay.
What are the
Old
rules?
Habits. Old Habits by Gemini Swims featuring Kid Rich.
I hate this game.
I think fake because it's not crazy enough. Like there's only the one Z. Like he's trying to throw us off.
No, Greg, he knows that we know that.
See,
So he's deliberately selected one that doesn't have any of those weird symbols. I'm saying this is real, which means that of course it's fucking fake because I think it's real. So everyone else should just say it's fake.
Oh,
no, it's real. It's real. I'm going with real.
You're no fool.
So, Greg, have I purposefully gone slightly vanilla just to deliberately throw you off?
Shit.
He's selected one that is vanilla to throw you off.
This one's
it's
fake.
real.
Greg,
Fake.
I must have an answer.
Final answer. Final answer, Regis.
Did Mauler go?
Oh yeah, so I'm going with fake.
Yes, this is fake. It's one that I made.
I'm back. I've got the magic back.
Back in the game.
Just say the opposite to what I say, and you're guaranteed.
That's the magic.
Right.
That's when I'm both successful.
Okay. Pink Lemonade by Leo Stay Trill and Mr. Reloaded.
Leo Stay Trill and Mr. Reloaded.
See, the problem is we've had
real to me.
Now, what's the next one? Is the next one false? The next one's true? I don't know.
Fake.
I think I'm going to go with fake again on this one.
I'm going real.
Shit, Greg's on a roll, so I'm gonna say fake because if you if you get 2 right, then you're probably gonna get the next one wrong. So that's when So I'm going the opposite of Greg. On
Tying himself up on this one.
I'm just doing pure math now.
Mental Mobius strip over here.
No, Pink Lemonade by Leo Stay Trill and Mr. Reloaded is real as an entry on the Billboard Top 100. Greg, what are you at? 2 out of 3?
That's 3 for 3.
3 for 3. Wow.
I'm also 3 for 3, but in the opposite way.
I'm 1 for 3. So
I'm going 1. Yeah.
Okay. Slow Dance in a Car Park by Blake McCulloch.
So we've had real, fake, real.
So this has to be fake.
I don't think
there's no way you could play it differently than
this
that.
Is fake.
It has to be.
But that's too patterny.
But look, this must be. It's the name. Look at the name, Blake McCulloch. It's not catchy enough, and then slow dancing. It's just. I mean, song names nowadays. This would just be called like Dance in a Car Park or something, and then there'd be a dollar sign in there.
This is the one that you were talking about, where this is a real one, and he picked a vanilla one on purpose. You called it correctly, just on the wrong song. This is the one he's doing it on, where it looks like it's not fake because there's none of the dumb shit. This is real.
Greg, you better be right because I'm going with you. You've convinced me.
It's real.
It's fake. It's fake.
Real.
Well, Greg and Despot, you're both wrong. This is one I made up.
Oh, this is so
Greg,
easy, guys. I want to point out how easy this is. Why would an American song say car park? We don't use that word here.
Oh,
yeah,
shit.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. But what do you say?
That was some good
We say parking lot.
Parking lot, of course. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that should have been a tell.
I wasn't giving away my tell on that
I should just make my answers totally random. I'd get one of them right.
I got too deep into it.
But just, but you've got.
I was sitting there. I was like, I really hope Greg doesn't realize that it's this car park.
Wow.
I'm overthinking it. I got too far in.
4 out of 4 from Despot. That's amazing. Okay.
You can never get too far in, Greg. Doesn't matter how.
Purple Gas by Zach Bryan and Nolene Hoffman.
Zach Bryan and Nolene Hoffman.
I was gonna say real, and just for that reason, I'm gonna say fake.
Tails. Fake.
Fuck it. My gut tells me fake, so everybody else, it's probably real.
I'm saying fake.
So, Despot, what's your final answer?
Fake.
Fake. Sorry, Despot, this is real. Purple Gas.
Well, we all said fake, so
yeah, we all said fake.
Do you know what the mathematical probability that I would get all 5 of these wrong are? Like just all, every one of them being 50-50. It's fucking infinitesimal at this stage.
Well, 2 more to go, so let's try the next one, which is Big Dog Shit by Lil Mabu and Lil Artie.
Oh god, it's like obviously this isn't real, right? And then it's like
no, this has to be real because it's so ridiculous looking that if this was fake, he would. It's real. It's real because.
It's real because I think that these artists are dumb enough to think that their song is like big dog shit, and they don't realize that it's big dog shit.
I'm gonna be the individual thinker and say it's fake.
I didn't go yet. I was going to say
real.
It's fake too.
It's a fake out. It's a fake out. This is Echo trying to fake us out. He's picked a song which looks like something that he would write to make it look fake, but in fact, it's actually real.
I'm going with fake because that's the only way I'll catch up at this point.
All right, Despot, you get one. This is a natural entry in the Billboard chart.
Fuck yeah, I'm a genius, man. The world's best fucking detective.
And lucky last. Yo Bunny by Prodby, CPK Sean, and Ugly Anns.
Oh my god.
I want this to be real, so I'm saying real.
Yeah, I agree. I bet this is real. Just that's how fucking dumb it's gotten.
I could totally see him seeing this and be like, "No way, anyone would believe this is real. I'm definitely putting this in." I want to say it's real. I'm gonna be crazy.
How do you pronounce?
Well,
CPK Sean or CPK Sean?
Prodby, CPK Sean, and Ugly Anns.
Sean, yeah.
No, not biceps. I don't know. It's fake.
Sorry, Greg. This one is a real entry on the Billboard.
I'm on a redemption arc here.
Man, I started off strong. I'm fading on the last.
I don't know how many I had right.
I think I have 3 as of right now. So,
well, yeah. So Despot 5 from 5 wrong, which is astonishing, and then you had a little tear there at the end. So that's right. Right, what was I going to talk about next? Oh yeah, New Zealand film. So I'm going to talk about The Lord of the Rings in a little bit, but I wanted to tell you guys about New Zealand film because like 20 years ago, well, over the last 20 years, New Zealand would punch above its weight. We had what was called the cinema of unease. So we had stuff like Once for Warriors and The Piano by Jane Campion and Taika Waititi's Boy, and then The Lord of the Rings would come through. But poor old little New Zealand, even like identity politics crap, has come this far down into our shores as well. And the New Zealand Film Commission is driving New Zealand culture into the ground because they're more interested in identity and positivity and empowerment than they are in actual storytelling. So from these incredible masterpieces and beautiful films, I'd share with you some of the greenlit projects from the New Zealand Film Commission that are be coming to New Zealand screens shortly. So the moon is upside down. 3 women, a duped mail-order bride, a numbed anesthetist determined to have a romantic weekend, and an empty nester on an unexpected mission of mercy, each navigates her way through an unfamiliar landscape and the contours of the human heart. Is that going to bring people to the multiplexes, do you think?
Oh, this sounds like victimist cinema to me. So victimist cinema is where you parade a bunch of victims on screen, usually women, and it's the job of the audience to feel sorry for them and talk about what a masterpiece it is because it's parading victims around on screen. So you've got duped mail order bride, she's a victim, a numbed anesthetist, she is a victim of the
right there. Come on.
She's a victim of the sort of the patriarchal corporate system, and an empty nester, which is very vague, but I would guess that she is a victim of her husband's indifference, something like that. She's been taken advantage of. So essentially, this sounds like the same old victimist bilge. Women talking and she said, same kind of shit, I would guess.
So this was greenlit to have a budget attached to it, and no one would ever watch that in a million years.
No,
we were dangerous.
This is just an alternative word for an anesthesiologist, basically.
Yeah. In 1954 New Zealand, Nellie and Daisy attempt to escape an institution for delinquent girls, but they are caught and it triggers a relocation to a facility on a remote island. The duo become a trio as well-to-do Lou joins them, and life on the island takes shape under the command of the devout matron.
Why is this two straight movies with trios of women?
So you've got 3 teenage girls fighting the system, basically, now.
Yeah, so no one's going to watch that either, but that got greenlit. Hey, Brainy Man. A group of ancient humans finds an object which they believe can make messages. They have something to say to Homo sapiens. Time-wise, it's about now, somewhere near a city. The stragglers carry the message machine through the forest to the outskirts of humanity, to where the roads cut into the trees. They deposit their statement, a performance appraisal for humankind on our epic evolutionary journey.
It just sounds like a modern art exhibition. It's an artist having a wank on the canvas.
The first part sounded okay, and then it just devolved into crap real quick.
So no one in a million years would watch that, but this got greenlit and got funding. So
look at this shit, this garbage.
This got greenlit. Wow,
I know, unbelievable, right? Yeah. So I just wanted to ask you guys in a kind of like a freewheeling discussion, which is the best out of these 3 films? If you had to choose, you could only watch one. Which is the coolest out of the 3? And chat, you're involved in this too. What is the coolest one? I'm going the Two Towers, because Helm's Deep has got to be one of the most consistently and enduringly visceral experiences you can see on screen. Technically, it's incredible. It's brilliant in terms of its excitement, and it's so enthralling, and the balance of shifting and power, the sense of dread, all of it is incredible. And Peter Jackson being a Kiwi, I think I told the story before, but in order to get the sound effects of the approaching Orc army, he went into the middle of a rugby stadium in Wellington and got the crowd to all stomp in unison. So he just modeled the movements that he wanted everyone to make. And then the crowd of 40,000 people would all stomp like that. So they could use that sound effect for the approaching Orc army. So that was a cool, very New Zealand thing to do. And plus, it's also got the introduction of Gollum properly, and his interactions with Sam and Frodo is really psychologically interesting. And he's a fascinating character to see, and he's beautifully rendered on the screen for like 2002 special effects levels. So give me Helm's Deep all the way, and give me the Two Towers all the way. That's my pick of the 3. Mauler, you've probably got some.
I was going to say,
are we doing in a particular order?
Well, just anyone who wants to jump in.
I'm going to do Two Towers. Everything that Echo said. Helm's Deep, maybe the best battle scene of all time, and Christopher Lee is just absolutely incredible in it. He's always brilliant in all of his roles, but that's just sometimes an actor. It's like a perfect storm. Everything comes together to create this perfect performance. And Christopher Lee's performance in The Two Towers, it's just superb. It's magic, and just everything else about it. It's an incredible movie. Yeah. I mean, Echo got it right, but I agree with everything. That it has to be The Two Towers for me. It always was. I never changed my mind about that ever since I was a kid and watched them for the first time. Two Towers was always my favorite.
I'll just add on to that because I agree as well. It's just like everything that Fellowship sets up. It's really like it's the world building. It's throwing the ball up and it's a beach ball and you just knock it out of the park immediately with Two Towers. It's the perfect balance of everything that's good about Fellowship and everything that's great about Return of the King, but it does both. There's you never feel. So with Fellowship, whereas I like it, there was always parts where I felt like there was a little, like I could have done without just a little bit of that, and I never felt that way with Two Towers. And then Return of the King, it has that, that crescendo ending, and then it kind of has like the false ending several times after that for a little while. And you don't ever get that with Two Towers, which I love. So that's just to add on to what was already said. Obviously, everything you guys said was correct.
You know what's interesting is that The Two Towers is my least favorite book because it's the middle of the trilogy and it's, everything's kind of dragging and there's really not a lot of there's not a big fascinating, what's going to happen as we build the world, and there's not the big payoff at the end. But as a movie, it's fantastic. But I'm just going to be different. I'm going to go with Return of the King because I'm a sucker for a good payoff. I like the payoff of the Army of the Dead. I like the big charge at the Black Gates. Obviously, the happy ending. Everybody gets what they want, kind of thing. I'm going to go with that.
The Army of the Dead was the only rushed thing in the whole trilogy, though. What do you think?
That's what I was kind of saying. Like, I almost feel like the Return of the King kind of tries to get to that crescendo too quick and then slows down afterwards a little bit. That's kind of what I was getting at. That the pacing of that last little bit could have been done a little bit better.
Yeah, and that's what I get with the movies. Like, I can understand why people would say, okay, the Fellowship of the Ring kind of starts a little slow. It's a little too cozy in the beginning. We have a lot of world building to do. I can understand what you're saying on the end. Visually, The Two Towers is great, but yeah, I like a good happy ending. So I'm gonna stick with Return of the King on this one.
Happy endings, fair enough.
More ways than one.
A mention I want for Two Towers is the introduction of Rohan and Theoden. They're fantastic as well. Obviously tied into Two Towers, Helm's Deep and everything. But funnily enough, I would probably pick Return of the King before Two Towers, but I would pick Fellowship of the Ring before Return of the King. Which is interestingly, apparently, against the grain on this one. Fellowship is phenomenal to me as a film. That prologue is fantastic to get me into a world I've never seen before. It's just amazing work. This gets done so quickly. Then taking us to the Shire, the gambit basically from the film of we want to keep and protect this. Isn't this just wonderful, peaceful, wholesome, and amazing? And getting to learn everything and everyone. I love the introduction of every character in Lord of the Rings. They're just so well done, so wonderful to be around. Of course, basically, I don't want to name every single scene, but my personal favorite scene from the trilogy is very likely Amon Hen, and then more specifically Boromir's sacrifice. Like, it's almost encapsulates everything to me about what this trilogy means to me on like a very visceral level. That you do what's right even in the face of absolute destruction, because that's what makes us like so impressive as agents of choice. And Boromir comes through despite the challenges he has to face, being a flawed man who wants to save the people he believes in. And Amon Hen, I think, is like a sleeper hit for an action scene. Most people go with Helm's Deep or Pelennor Fields or Minas Tirith, that sort of thing. But I love the battle scene in Amon Hen. It's so visceral, so bloody, so like aggressively physical. But then also the camera work is amazing. The Gandalf versus the Balrog, I was blown away when I saw that in the cinema for the first time. I couldn't believe it. I thought it was incredible. And then obviously everyone's performances. Fellowship of the Ring for me. Funnily enough, I could see how a lot of people see it as the opening chapters. It can be slow. There's things they want to, get past when they want rewatches. But to me, it's almost so complete. I get my beginning, middle, and end, so to speak, in terms of what the promise of this story is, and then the three of them work together as well as a full story. Nothing but adoration for the entire trilogy, though. It's incredible, and we'll never get it again.
Well, I mean, just before we move off this, I do want to say that for me, the most important thing about the Lord of the Rings trilogy is that the Lord of the Rings crawled so that Rings of Power could run.
Oh, absolutely. That's what we need.
You mean ride its horse?
With a giant weird smile on its face. I can't find it now, but I remember seeing somewhere, some article or some tweet or some shit that somebody broke down like how many minutes Boromir is actually on screen, and it's insane. I wish I could find it because it's ridiculously low for how much character arc happens with that guy. He starts out, you're kind of unsure about him. He's obviously very ambitious. He has an entire redemption arc, and he's on screen. I think it's like 35 minutes or something like that in that first movie. I don't know. I'm not going to search for it too long, but if you look it up to find the exact number of minutes that he's on the screen and how much they get done with that character, it's astonishing. And then it takes away all excuse for modern movies who can't get they can't get half a character across in 2 hours. And Boromir has this entire arc that is fully believable and emotional, and you feel it in such a short period of time.
Well, I want to do a plug for our good mate Random Film Talk, who did one of his videos. He took all the cut scenes from, I think, just the first film, and then he did like a chart of like, this should have been cut. This I could go either way. This one they should definitely have left in, and it's a really cool way that he's systematically broken it down. So I think it's a really good video to watch. Is Viggo Mortensen's character, is his character arc the most beautiful character arc ever? It's the way that he, from when he begins, kind of to how he ends up at the end, and the smoothness of that transition, the gradient of it, and the way that he delivers it, gradually getting more gravitas and the way that he comports himself. The subtleties across the 3 films. Surely that's the greatest character arc there's ever been.
You're talking about how he evolves. I mean, he's always a heroic character, but he evolves from being a soldier to a king. That evolution. Yeah. It is. Yeah. I mean, that's amazing.
Going from Strider to the end of the film where he says, "You bow to no one." That's got to be the greatest character arc there's ever been.
It's not my favorite from the films, but I recognize it's very fucking good.
There's a guy, Master Samwise, that does he does a lot of YouTube videos on like masculinity and stuff, but he's got really good ones on Sam Gamgee and Aragorn, and just the positive masculinity, the realistic, this idealized man that we don't see a lot in films and television and stuff anymore. He's got really good breakdowns of that kind of stuff, and Aragorn has he's got a great character arc, and I mean, you can really look at that and say on screen, that's a great man, which is that's cool to have.
I also a character doesn't absolutely need to have an arc. A character can have an odyssey. So, for example, Gollum, at the end, Gollum isn't substantially different to how he started, unfortunately, because it's a tragedy. But Gollum doesn't go on an arc, he goes on an odyssey, and Gollum's Odyssey is one of the great movies ever told in cinema.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. So, Mauler, who would you put above Aragorn as having the greatest character?
I am unapologetically, publicly a Boromir fanboy. He is my favorite character in Lord of the Rings, and he's kind of one of my favorite characters of all time. To me, he represents the important nature of redemption for man, and nothing but respect for a man who will, in the face of death, defend 2 people who are so much weaker than he is and desperately need someone like him to take care of them.
Echo, in the chat, we have a contender in Rocky for the greatest arc of all time, going from bad club fighter to telling Gorbachev to go fuck himself.
That's pretty good. Yeah. A bit of a shout out to Luke Skywalker. That's one hell of an arc, right?
Yeah, do you know what? Maybe my favorite scene in the OT trilogy is when Luke Skywalker walks into Jabba's palace and the 2 pig guards come up to him and he very calmly force strangles them. Because that, to me, that was the moment where we realized, okay, he's a Jedi now, and he's very powerful, but he's also got this kind of cold ruthlessness. I love that moment in Star Wars.
It's very subtle too, which is something that you don't get anymore. So
what about
I mean, if it was
Galadriel's arc? Galadriel's arc from being stupendously perfect and brilliant in every way, and then at the end of the series also being stupendously perfect and brilliant in every way. That's a very
I love the sort of dramatic movement of that arc, whereby she goes from being perfect and amazing and incredible and stunning and brave in one scene to being stunning and brave and amazing and perfect in the next scene, and it's just every scene she's like that. It's incredible.
Yeah, it really brings me into the show. And Sabine Wren going from being an outsider, kind of like who hasn't found her place, to doing the queef beneath my wings of launching what's his face all the way up into that ship using the power of force projection. So Ezra Bridger gets thrown up into the ship.
Yeah, so I don't know that I'm going to be able to get it done in time. I started writing. I never finished Rings of Power because I started watching it when it came out, and I was like, this isn't fun. But I also didn't want to make videos about it. I was busy. I don't remember what I was doing, but I was busy. I never did make videos. So I was like, I'm going to watch these, and I'm going to do like a recap before it comes out. But I don't think I'm going to have time. But that Galadriel's angry face might be some of the funniest shit that I've ever seen on screen.
Like whenever she wants to be
intimidating. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you know that I'm serious right now.
It's like a child. It's like a child who just got a cookie taken away from them. It's that pouty,
Oh God!
I love that how it's this perfectly angular eyebrow thing she does, like that in the last scene. It's brilliant.
That was really good.
I can't want to smile.
All right,
hold on. Let's do a quick prediction. Rings of Power season 2, better or worse than season 1?
Oh my God, worse.
Worse? Why? Why, Mauler?
Because they're gonna fuck up everything they've already established on top of fucking up as usual. You know what I mean? Like they'll do the same thing as season 1, but now they'll be fucking up even more of what they've put as fact down, and they're probably gonna get more ambitious in terms of trying to key jangle. So we'll see more references to things that we like getting ruined.
Yeah.
Didn't they threaten to bring Tom Bombadil in it?
Yeah, he's going to be in it.
Yeah.
How the fuck? I can't even.
Well, here it is. Despot literally can't even. Anyway, I'm going to do a couple more super chats. Here we go. So it's Floyda for $2 here. Despot, Logic God, deciphering song realness.
I have no idea what that means.
Yeah, I'm saying that you're a god at deciphering whether or not the song titles are real.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I couldn't even decipher that fucking comment.
M8566 for another $2. Favorite character from Lord of the Rings? Well, I would have to say Gollum because I think he's fascinating and he's tragic.
I agree with that.
Oh, not Aragorn then for your favorite.
I got Samwise.
He's got the greatest arc, but I think Gollum is the most compelling and enthralling.
He has the greatest odyssey, if you will.
Yeah. All right. And Nitrium, New Zealand $5. What is New Zealand's best non-blockbuster movie, in your opinion? In My Father's Den is it for me, although Once for Warriors, of course, also great. In My Father's Den would be a good contender. I would say Rain would probably be a good one. Sione's Wedding would be quite fun. Yeah. I'm not sure if The Piano was a blockbuster, but that could also be there as well. But yeah, the right state of New Zealand culture, which is severely going downhill. But that's a different story for a different age. I think, since it's heading towards the early hours in the UK, I might let our featured guest think about heading to Betty Buys. So it just remains me to thank my wonderful guests. And I think we broke the record for views. Last time we had Robot Head, it was pretty high as well, but this has been pretty high. So, Greg Owen, what do you got to tell the folks?
The Acolyte is terrible, and I plan on spending several hours telling you why. I had to break mine into 2 parts. I'm just going to do part 1, which is just the writing, and then part 2 will be the morality later in a couple of weeks. And they'll probably be 2 hours each because there's just too much to cover.
I miss Dr. Greg. What's happened to that iteration?
You know what is that I built that studio and I don't have room for my green screen and I'm too lazy to I need to just figure out where to put that thing. I have a stand for it and everything because I've got jokes to do with that up. I got to bring him back and his special tools.
Well, so Despot, when is your big monster of a video going to drop?
I'm hoping to have it out before Rings of Power drops. And I'll include a quick teaser. Carrie Mulligan is going to begin her the next step in her character arc.
Excellent. DarkHour, aside from accruing thousands upon thousands of new subs, what else have you got going on?
So probably gonna do a review of Deadpool because I'm a comic guy at heart, so it makes the most sense that I would do that. Obviously my live show, which goes head to head with Mauler every week. So I lose all of those. We'll be going. We were supposed to have the YouTuber Master Ken on this week, but because we had to move the day, it's going to be backed up to later. So I had to scramble and put together a team of crackheads, as I'm saying it, not a crack team, a team of crackheads. And we're going to be doing Batman 89 this week.
Cool.
So other than that, if you haven't seen my videos about the Acolyte, I do a lot of fun little things in there, including several fake ads, which have gone over really well. And I suggest, at minimum, just fast forward to those if you want a good laugh.
Great. And Mauler, today's featured guest. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been a blast having you and your brilliant opinions.
Thank you so much for inviting me. You would be hard pressed to compete with EFAP right now because we're covering Boogie, going through his grand journey, which has been it's quite a test. We have a lot of guests on for this sort of thing just because you need a bulk of people to be able to take the psychic damage, and a few of them have to drop off, after so much.
Was it confirmed that he faked cancer?
100%, yes.
Yeah.
There's no. So the simple version is he was given information that could mean after a few more tests he has cancer, or it could mean he's so fat that he has trouble sleeping that reduces the oxygen in his blood, which increases the oxygen, the red blood cells, which gives off the same result as a particular cancer could. The way to confirm it was a bone marrow test he hadn't gotten yet. He decided instead to tell the internet he has the cancer because the treatment for both the non-cancerous and cancerous versions are similar, if not the same. So he felt in his head, I can say I have cancer. And people have said, you can't say you have cancer when you don't have cancer. And he has since apologized profusely, but it's a bit late now.
Fuck. I can't wait for the Gundam interpretation of this. That should be fun.
I actually just realized I'm not going up against that because I just said I had to back it back to Sunday. So I'm not going up against you this day. Actually, my next 3 shows are not against EFAP. So I might actually get numbers.
Yeah, well, we're doing part 2 this Saturday, but then it would be nice to go back to talking about movies because he's been
unfortunately, if you have a show at any point of the day on Saturday, you're guaranteed to go up against EFAP at some point of that show.
We've been trying to keep it to like a 5 to 7 hours, and our fans say like, why are you cutting it off so early?
And just to round things off, we have this incredibly generous contribution from Mo Sislak. Mo, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Sometimes it can be a little challenging to keep the channel going. And so this kind of stuff really helps to keep the lights on. So I really appreciate that a great deal. Thank you so much. And that's pretty much it for today, team. I just wanted to end with the one note that we're coming up to the 30th anniversary of my favorite album of all time, which is Jeff Buckley's Grace. Came out August 1994. So coming up to that now, 30 years. If you want to treat yourself to one of the greatest musical masterpieces of all time, then put that on for an hour, and it will be a beautiful and wonderful experience. Other than that, it just remains for me to thank Mr. Greg Owen, Despot of Antrim, DarkHour, and the great Mauler for a couple of hours of wonderful chat, and hope that we've kept you entertained. And
absolutely, thank you so much.
Oh, yeah. So that's pretty much it for today. So bye-bye, Internet, and we'll see you next time.